Get on your knees, boy. You picked the wrong building to case today. 3 white officers surround a distinguished black man in a tailored suit, weapons drawn. One officer's knee already pressing into his back, despite no resistance. I said knees, you deaf. This is a federal property. The man's expensive watch catches the light as he's forced down, face pressed against marble. I have identification. Shut it. Hands where we can see them. You think we're stupid? Your kind doesn't belong here. With painful slowness, they allow him to reach inside his jacket. The lead officer sneers, expecting excuses. Instead, the man produces not just ID, but a federal badge. FBI Special Agent in Charge, Marcus Thompson. This is my operation, and you're all on camera. The officers' faces drain of color as realization dawns. The look in Thompson's eyes promises consequences that will shake an entire system to its foundation. Special Agent in Charge Marcus Thompson steps from his unmarked sedan, adjusting his tailored suit as he surveys the gleaming Chicago business district. Early evening sun glints off the glass facade, casting long shadows across the parking structure. The Summit Corporate Center houses 12 corporations, 3 of which are targets in his complex white-collar crime investigation. Thompson checks his watch. 6:45 p.m. Perfect timing. Most employees gone, but the building remains accessible. Security presence minimal. He adjusts his earpiece, maintaining contact with his team stationed discreetly around the perimeter. Initial reconnaissance only tonight, Thompson murmurs. Full operation executes tomorrow at Oro 800. He enters through the main lobby, projecting the confident air of someone who belongs. No FBI identifiers, no visible credentials, standard protocol for preliminary assessment. His experienced eyes catalog camera positions, security desk protocols, access points. 15 years investigating financial crimes has honed his ability to move undetected while gathering crucial intelligence. In the security office, Gregory Hayes shifts in his chair, eyes narrowing at the monitor showing Thompson examining the building directory. Hayes, a middle-aged white man with 20 years in private security, prides himself on knowing trouble when he sees it. He watches Thompson take notes on his phone, muttering to himself. "Not on my watch," Hayes whispers, reaching for his phone. Thompson proceeds methodically, floor by floor, noting exit stairwells, camera blind spots, potential evidence storage locations. He pauses occasionally, making voice notes on his encrypted phone about security vulnerabilities, information critical for tomorrow's raid. Dispatch, this is Summit Corporate Security. Got a suspicious individual in the building after hours. Hayes speaks into his phone, eyes never leaving the monitor. Male, black, expensive suit, but acting strange. Taking photos, examining security features, possible break-in preparation. "Criminal history?" the dispatcher asks. Hayes's hesitation lasts only a second. "Unknown, but he doesn't look like he belongs here. Our tenants are high-profile financial firms. Need officers immediately. Description: about 6 FT, athletic build, dark-skinned, shaved head, moving with purpose like he's casing the place. Currently on the 14th floor, where our highest value tenants are located." As 3 patrol cars silently converge on the building, Thompson continues his assessment, unaware that his race has just transformed routine reconnaissance into a potentially dangerous confrontation. Hayes watches with grim satisfaction as blue uniforms enter the lobby, hands already hovering near their weapons. Thompson rounds the corner near the elevator bank, still dictating observations into his phone. 14th floor houses primary target offices with minimal after-hours. "Police, stop right there, bright." 3 officers block his path, the lead officer's hand already resting on his holstered weapon. Thompson freezes, immediately assessing the situation with trained precision. He slowly raises his hands to chest level, palms forward. "Good evening, officers," Thompson says, voice measured and calm. "Is there a problem?" The lead officer, Reynolds, steps forward. Mid-40s, crew cut, jaw tight with premature judgment. Building security reported suspicious activity. What's your business here after hours? I'm conducting a property assessment. Thompson keeps his response vague by design, revealing his FBI status now would compromise weeks of careful investigation preparation. The elevator doors open, and Hayes steps out, pointing accusingly. That's him. Been wandering the restricted floors for almost 30 minutes. ID, Reynolds demands, hand still hovering near his weapon. Thompson nods. I'm going to reach for my wallet. Slowly, Reynolds barks, now unsnapping his holster. Hayes interjects. I've never seen him before. He doesn't have clearance for the executive floors. Thompson's expression remains neutral as he carefully extracts his wallet. I'm authorized to be here. By who? Hayes challenges, folding his arms across his security uniform. Reynolds takes Thompson's driver's license, deliberately ignoring the federal credentials visible behind it. He studies the license, then looks at Thompson with undisguised suspicion. Mr. Thompson, Reynolds emphasizes the civilian address. Care to explain what kind of property assessment involves photographing security cameras and exit routes? It's standard procedure, Thompson replies, noting how the second officer has positioned himself to block the stairwell exit. If you'd like to verify this is my building, Hayes interrupts, his voice rising. And I'm telling you he's trespassing. Thompson raises an eyebrow. Your building? And what evidence besides my appearance suggests I don't belong here? Hayes flushes. The way you were behaving was suspicious. Specifically how? Thompson presses, looking at security features, taking notes, examining restricted areas. Hayes sputters. Reynolds hands back only the driver's license. We've received credible reports of suspicious activity. That's enough for us to act. Thompson notes the deliberate omission of his federal credentials. Taking notes on a phone constitutes suspicious activity now. Reynolds' eyes narrow dangerously as he steps closer. Final warning. Prove legitimate business here or leave in handcuffs. Thompson calculates his options in a fraction of a second. Revealing his FBI status would terminate the covert phase of a multi-million-dollar financial crimes investigation. The evidence isn't secured. Targets would scatter. Months of work lost. I'll comply, Thompson states evenly. But I need your names and badge numbers first. Reynolds hesitates, then recites his information with obvious reluctance. The other officers follow suit, their discomfort visible as Thompson commits each detail to memory. Let's move this to the lobby, Reynolds orders, positioning himself unnecessarily close to Thompson. Hayes strides ahead, already playing to an audience that doesn't yet exist. We need to secure the premises, he announces loudly as they enter the elevator. Can't be too careful these days. The lobby holds a handful of late workers, predominantly white professionals, gathering their belongings. Heads turn as the officers escort Thompson through the marble expanse. Hayes increases his volume, ensuring everyone hears. Security threat neutralized, folks. Nothing to worry about. Thompson notices smartphones emerging. Recording the scene, he keeps his expression neutral, but positions himself to ensure his face is clearly visible in their footage. Evidence gathering works both ways. Stand here. Reynolds directs Thompson to a spot directly under the brightest lobby lights, maximizing his visibility to onlookers. Empty your pockets, everything on the desk. Is this standard procedure for someone who hasn't been charged with anything? Thompson asks, voice level, but carrying clearly to the growing audience. Just do it, Reynolds snaps. Thompson complies methodically, placing each item with deliberate precision. Wallet, phone, keys, and a small notebook. Reynolds snatches the notebook, flipping through pages of building observations. What's this? Floor plans, security notes. Reynolds holds up the notebook like a trophy. Looks like criminal planning to me. Those are professional observations, Thompson responds. Nothing illegal about noting building features. A crowd forms at a safe distance, murmuring. Hayes puffs up his chest, playing security hero. This is what happens when we stay vigilant, people. This is how we keep this building safe. His pointed glance at Thompson makes the subtext clear. From people like you. Thompson spots two black women among the onlookers, their expressions a mixture of recognition and resignation. They've seen this before, perhaps experienced it themselves. Are we finished? Thompson asks after Reynolds thoroughly examines each of his possessions. Or would you like to continue this public spectacle? Don't get smart, Reynolds warns, handing back Thompson's belongings with deliberate roughness. We're escorting you out. Don't return without proper authorization. Outside, with no audience but the night security camera, Reynolds' professionalism slips further. Let me make something clear. You'd be smarter not to come back to this building. Is that a threat? Thompson asks quietly. Or are you banning me based on my race rather than any action? Reynolds' face hardens. I'm warning you about trespassing charges. Next time won't be a friendly conversation. Thompson memorizes every detail of the encounter. The officer's positioning, Hayes' performative security theater, the witnesses, the exact phrasing of Reynolds' veiled threat, his FBI training and evidence collection serving a purpose they never anticipated. As the patrol car pulls away, Thompson's phone vibrates with an incoming call. FBI Director Harlan flashes on the screen. It happened again, sir. Thompson speaks softly into his phone, watching the patrol car disappear around the corner. Details. Director Harlan's voice is sharp, concerned. Thompson recounts the confrontation with precision. Hayes' unwarranted suspicion, Reynolds' escalation, the public humiliation staged for maximum effect. His tone remains professional, but the controlled anger underneath is evident to someone who knows him well. Your call, Marcus. Harlan says we can postpone the operation, reassign. No. Thompson's response is immediate. The financial investigation proceeds as planned, but I'm documenting this incident for the secondary protocol. You're certain revealing your status tomorrow will make the point more effectively. Thompson finishes. They need to see both sides of the coin. Silence hangs between them for a moment, then understood. Full support from this office. Document everything. Thompson ends the call and steps into his sedan. Mind already reformulating tomorrow's operation. He opens a secure app on his phone, dictating a detailed report of the incident. Names, badge numbers, timestamps, exact quotes, witness descriptions. The report automatically routes to a specialized FBI Civil Rights Division tracking law enforcement bias incidents. The hotel room serves as a temporary command center. Thompson pins photographs of tomorrow's targets on the wall. Financial executives involved in a complex fraud scheme operating from offices in the Summit building. Now he adds 3 new photos: Hayes, Reynolds, and the patrol officer. 4 months earlier, Thompson sat in Director Harlan's office as surveillance footage played on the screen. Another black FBI agent surrounded by local police during an undercover operation, forced to reveal federal status prematurely. That's the 6th incident this quarter, Harlan had said, rubbing his temples. We're losing operations because our agents of color can't complete reconnaissance without being profiled. Thompson had leaned forward. We need to document these patterns systematically, not just terminate the encounters by revealing credentials. Now Thompson calls Agent Morales, his second in command. We need to adjust tomorrow's parameters. Building security and local police may become hostile factors. They made you? Morales asks. Not exactly, Thompson explains. They made assumptions. We'll use that. Meanwhile, Hayes sits in a hotel bar with a colleague nursing a whiskey. Had to escort someone out tonight. Suspicious character casing the 14th floor. Yeah, his colleague asks without much interest. You know the type? Hayes continues, lowering his voice. Didn't belong there, trying to look like he fit in, but I wasn't fooled. His colleague shifts uncomfortably. What exactly made him suspicious? Hayes hesitates. Professional instinct. 20 years in security. You develop a sense for these things. Back in his hotel room, Thompson reviews the case files one final time. The Summit financial investigation represents millions in investor fraud, money laundering through shell companies with connections to organized crime, all operating behind the respectable glass facade Hayes so zealously protects, but only from certain people. Thompson makes his decision tomorrow. 2 investigations will proceed simultaneously. The financial crimes operation planned for weeks, and now documentation of the systemic bias he experienced firsthand. He places his FBI credentials on the nightstand, a symbol of the authority he deliberately withheld tonight. Tomorrow, Thompson tells Morales over the secure line. We're going to conduct 2 raids instead of 1. Morning light catches on Thompson's FBI windbreaker as he strides through the Summit building's revolving doors. Behind him, 12 agents in matching gear form a precise tactical formation. Each wears body cameras. Each carries federal warrants. Their synchronized movement speaks of rigorous training and absolute authority. Thompson wears his credentials openly now, the gold FBI shield gleaming against the dark fabric. His expression remains professionally neutral, but his posture has transformed. This is Special Agent in Charge Thompson in his element, leading a major federal operation. Hayes's coffee cup freezes halfway to his mouth as he watches the security feed. His face contorts in recognition, then alarm. He fumbles for his phone, bypassing dispatch to call Reynolds's direct line. The guy from yesterday, he's back with a team. They're wearing FBI jackets. Thompson approaches the security desk where a different guard sits wide-eyed at the sudden federal presence. Special Agent in Charge Thompson, FBI. He presents his credentials and a folder of documents. These are federal warrants authorizing immediate access to offices listed within. We require master key cards and security protocols. Hayes emerges from the back office, face flushed. Agent, I didn't realize yesterday there seems to have been a misunderstanding. Thompson turns, his gaze clinical. Mr. Hayes, we require immediate access to the following locations. He slides a document across the counter, ignoring Hayes's attempted explanation. Hayes examines the warrant with trembling hands, then steps away to make another call, this time to Victor Kensington, the building's owner. Sir, the FBI is here with warrants. The man I had removed yesterday. He's leading them. Thompson dispatches his team with efficient precision. Morales, take the 14th floor. Jackson, 15th. Williams, secure the server room. The agents disperse throughout the building as Hayes watches helplessly. His security protocols, so zealously enforced against Thompson yesterday, now rendered meaningless by federal authority. Reynolds arrives 7 minutes later, uniform hastily assembled. He freezes at the lobby entrance, watching FBI agents methodically entering offices carrying evidence bags. His expression shifts from confusion to dawning horror as he spots Thompson directing the operation. Thompson acknowledges Reynolds with nothing more than a professional nod before returning to coordination efforts. The power dynamic has completely reversed. Thompson now commands the space where yesterday he was treated as an intruder. Hayes hovers nearby, alternating between nervous glances at Thompson and anxious looks towards the entrance. When the elevator doors open to reveal a distinguished older man in an expensive suit, Hayes's anxiety visibly peaks. Thompson turns just as Victor Kensington, primary target of the financial investigation, steps directly into the FBI's path. Victor Kensington stops mid-stride, his authoritative entrance collapsing as he registers the FBI presence. His eyes dart from the agents efficiently moving through his building to Thompson, who now approaches with deliberate calm. Mr. Kensington. Thompson's tone is professionally detached. I'm Special Agent in Charge Marcus Thompson, FBI Financial Crimes Division. What is the meaning of this invasion? Kensington attempts to project outrage, but his voice wavers. 62 years old, silver-haired, with the practiced confidence of wealth, he's unaccustomed to challenges to his authority. Thompson extends the warrant. This details the scope of our investigation into securities fraud and money laundering operations within this building, specifically involving Kensington Holdings, Summit Investment Partners, and Horizon Trust. Hayes edges closer, sweat beading on his forehead. Mr. Kensington, this is the individual I mentioned from yesterday's incident. Thompson turns his attention to Hayes. Yes, Mr. Hayes. Perhaps you'd like to elaborate on that incident for Mr. Kensington, the one where you reported me as suspicious based solely on my appearance in the building. Hayes's mouth opens and closes silently. Kensington quickly distances himself. I have no knowledge of any incident. Hayes acts independently on security matters. Interesting, Thompson notes, yet phone records show he called you immediately after I was escorted out. Kensington's composure fractures momentarily before he recovers. I own this building. Security naturally alerts me to concerns. Reynolds steps forward. Sir, we were responding to a suspicious person call. Standard procedure, of course. Thompson acknowledges with calculated politeness, just as it's standard procedure for the FBI to investigate potential civil rights violations alongside financial crimes. The word violations lands like a physical blow. Hayes pales. Reynolds's professional mask slips. Agent Morales. Thompson calls to his second-in-command, a Hispanic agent efficiently cataloging documents. Please work with Mr. Hayes to access the remaining secured areas. Hayes hesitates, clearly uncomfortable taking directions from Morales, revealing yet another layer of bias that Thompson silently notes. Kensington attempts to regain control. I have connections in Washington who will be very interested in this overreach. That statement has been recorded, Thompson replies evenly. I'd advise against anything that could be construed as attempting to obstruct a federal investigation. Kensington falls silent, suddenly aware of the body cameras capturing every word, every reaction, the tactical advantage he thought he possessed. Connections, influence, Hayes's security measures, all rendered meaningless in the face of federal authority wielded by the very man they had humiliated. Throughout the building, agents systematically gather evidence of financial crimes while simultaneously documenting yesterday's discrimination. The dual investigation proceeds with methodical precision under Thompson's direction. Kensington, Hayes, and Reynolds exchange panicked glances as Thompson's phone rings with a call that visibly changes his expression. Thompson steps aside to take the call, listening intently before responding with a single, decisive approved. When he returns, his expression carries an additional layer of authority. Mr. Kensington, Officer Reynolds, Mr. Hayes. Thompson addresses each man deliberately. We've just received authorization to expand our investigation. I believe you'll all want your lawyers present for what comes next. Expansion? Kensington's voice tightens. The warrant specifically covers financial documentation. This is a separate matter, Thompson clarifies, his tone measured. The FBI Civil Rights Division has authorized a concurrent investigation into potential violations stemming from yesterday's incident. He turns to Hayes. We'll need all security footage from the building, particularly covering my initial visit and the subsequent confrontation. Hayes's face flushes. Some of those cameras might be malfunctioning. Attempting to destroy evidence in a federal investigation is a felony, Thompson responds without hesitation. Agent Michael specializes in digital forensics. He'll secure your surveillance system immediately to prevent any unfortunate malfunctions. A young agent moves toward the security office as Hayes watches helplessly. Kensington attempts damage control. I had no involvement in whatever occurred yesterday. Your phone received a call from Hayes at 6:58 p.m., immediately following my removal from the premises. Thompson counters a subpoena for those records has already been approved. The conversation lasted 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Kensington's carefully maintained facade cracks. That was about building security matters. We look forward to confirming that, Thompson replies. A female officer approaches cautiously. Agent Thompson, I was present yesterday but not directly involved. I'd like to provide a statement about what I observed. Thank you, officer. We'll arrange for your formal testimony. Thompson's respectful tone contrasts sharply with his interactions with Reynolds, who watches the exchange with growing alarm. Throughout the building, the FBI operation expands visibly. Additional agents arrive, securing evidence related to both investigations. Local media vans begin appearing outside, alerted to the massive federal presence. Reynolds steps away, phone pressed to his ear. I need union representation now. His earlier confidence has evaporated, replaced by the dawning realization of his vulnerability. Thompson receives another call, this time from Director Harlan himself. Their brief exchange confirms the highest levels of the Bureau are now monitoring both aspects of the investigation. The stakes continue rising as Hayes, Reynolds, and Kensington watch their professional worlds unraveling. From the corner of his eye, Thompson notices his phone displaying a news alert. Breaking. FBI raid targets financial fraud ring. Sources report simultaneous civil rights investigation. Thompson reviews security footage showing clear racial profiling as national media broadcasts the unfolding dual investigation to millions. The Summit Building's 15th floor conference room transforms into an impromptu federal command center. Thompson stands at the head of the table, composed and authoritative. Seated before him, Kensington Hayes Reynolds, the female officer who came forward, and 2 recently arrived police department officials. The atmosphere crackles with tension. For clarity, I'll formally introduce myself. Thompson's voice fills the room with quiet authority. Special Agent in Charge Marcus Thompson, 15-year veteran of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I've led investigations resulting in 127 federal convictions for financial crimes, public corruption, and civil rights violations. He activates a display screen showing his credentials, commendations, and appointment letter. I personally requested assignment to this investigation after multiple reports indicated a pattern of both financial irregularities and discriminatory practices in this building and surrounding area. Hayes shifts uncomfortably. Kensington maintains his practiced poker face. Reynolds stares at the table. My position grants me direct operational authority from the FBI Director and Department of Justice leadership. Thompson continues. I'm authorized to pursue all relevant lines of investigation, including those that emerged unexpectedly. He taps his tablet, bringing up a new display. Mr. Hayes, over the past 12 months, you've reported suspicious individuals to local police exactly 17 times. Thompson lets the number hang in the air before continuing. All 17 were people of color. All 17 were legitimate visitors or workers. None resulted in criminal charges. Hayes's face drains of color. This established pattern provided predicate for our dual investigation, Thompson explains, turning to the police officials. The frequency and consistency of these incidents raised concerns beyond isolated poor judgment. The senior police official, a deputy commissioner who arrived 20 minutes earlier, removes his glasses. Agent Thompson, I want to assure you the department takes these allegations extremely seriously. I'm certain you do now, Thompson acknowledges. However, the pattern suggests systemic issues requiring more than assurances. Thompson advances to the next screen. For context, the FBI's Civil Rights Division has been investigating patterns of racial profiling in cooperation with law enforcement agencies nationwide. Yesterday's incident provided a controlled documentation opportunity. The revelation lands with seismic impact. Kensington straightens in his chair, suddenly understanding the fuller implications. To be absolutely clear, Thompson says, addressing Kensington directly, your financial crimes and Mr. Hayes's discriminatory practices will be treated as potentially connected investigations. The possibility that a discriminatory security environment was fostered to deflect scrutiny from financial operations is now an active investigative angle. Kensington's attorney, who arrived moments before the meeting, scribbles furiously. Thompson activates a video screen, Officer Reynolds's body camera footage from yesterday. The room watches in silence as the confrontation plays out. Without the heat of the moment, the absence of reasonable suspicion becomes glaringly obvious. The female officer's discomfort is clearly visible in the background of several shots supporting her decision to come forward. Thompson pauses the footage at a particularly damning moment, Reynolds deliberately ignoring Thompson's federal credentials while examining his driver's license. My decision not to immediately identify myself as FBI was deliberate, Thompson explains, his voice steady. It documented how a black professional is treated without the shield of federal authority. This investigation isn't about me. It's about the 17 others without badges who faced similar treatment. The room falls silent. The power dynamic has completely transformed. Thompson is revealed not as a victim seeking redress, but as a federal authority methodically documenting systemic discrimination for potential prosecution. Mr. Kensington, your companies are suspected of defrauding investors of approximately $47 million through elaborately disguised Ponzi schemes, Thompson states matter-of-factly. Mr. Hayes, your security practices demonstrate a pattern of discriminatory enforcement, creating hostile access based on race. Officer Reynolds, your body camera footage reveals escalation without reasonable suspicion in a manner consistent with documented racial profiling. Thompson closes his tablet, standing even straighter. The FBI doesn't pursue these investigations lightly. We pursue them because equal access and equal treatment under law are non-negotiable American principles. Principles that were violated in this building repeatedly, systematically, and demonstrably. The Deputy Commissioner clears his throat. We'll cooperate fully with your investigation, Agent Thompson. I anticipated you would, Thompson responds. His gaze sweeps the room, meeting each person's eyes in turn. From Kensington's calculating stare, to Hayes's defeated slump, to Reynolds's simmering resentment. The decisions you all made yesterday and in the preceding months have consequences far beyond what you imagined. Those consequences begin today. As federal agents continue gathering evidence throughout the building, all three men realize they've unknowingly triggered their own professional destruction. The consequences unfold with the precision of dominoes falling in sequence, each impact triggering the next in an unstoppable cascade. Day 1, FBI forensic accountants descend on Kensington's financial empire. They discover the fraud extends deeper than initially believed. Elaborate shell companies, falsified returns, investor funds siphoned to offshore accounts. What began as a $47 million investigation quickly balloons to $68 million as additional victims emerge. Thompson coordinates with the Securities and Exchange Commission, expanding the investigation's scope to include Kensington's partners and enablers. The pattern suggests long-term deliberate deception, Thompson explains to the assembled Financial Crimes Task Force. Mr. Kensington created an image of impenetrable legitimacy while systematically defrauding investors. The parallel with Hayes's security theater, creating an illusion of protection while actually perpetuating harm, doesn't escape anyone in the room. Day 3, Hayes receives formal notification of administrative leave pending investigation. The property management company distances itself rapidly, issuing a public statement about taking allegations seriously and reviewing security protocols. Internal review of building security footage reveals what Thompson already documented, a clear pattern of discriminatory enforcement. Hayes approaches people of color for verification at 8 times the rate of white visitors, despite no statistical difference in legitimate access. The Summit Building's lobby, where Thompson was publicly humiliated, now features new security personnel and a prominently displayed non-discrimination policy. Day 5, the police department launches an internal affairs investigation into Reynolds's conduct. The female officer's testimony proves pivotal, revealing this wasn't Reynolds's first instance of escalating encounters with minorities without reasonable suspicion. 3 additional officers come forward with similar accounts, suggesting a departmental culture problem rather than isolated incidents. "We're implementing immediate retraining," the deputy commissioner announces at a hastily called press conference, "and reviewing all civilian complaints involving Officer Reynolds from the past 5 years. Thompson watches the press conference from his temporary office in the federal building, noting how quickly institutions move to protect themselves once exposure becomes inevitable. Day 7. Thompson coordinates with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, establishing a formal task force addressing the intersection of financial crimes and discriminatory practices. This elevation makes the case a priority at the federal level, allocating additional resources and expanding investigative authority. "These aren't separate issues," Thompson explains to the assembled federal attorneys. "The discrimination created a protective barrier for the financial crimes. Each reinforces the other." Day 9. Kensington attempts to leverage political connections, making calls to congressional representatives and a former federal judge. These efforts backfire spectacularly when Thompson reveals these very attempts as potential obstruction of justice. The calls, meticulously documented by federal surveillance authorized under the initial financial crimes warrants, only strengthen the case against him. Former allies distance themselves as evidence mounts. Mr. Kensington fundamentally misunderstands his position. Thompson tells the prosecution team he believes influence still outweighs evidence. Day 12. Media coverage intensifies. Initial reports focused on the financial crimes angle, but the discrimination aspect gains traction as more victims of Hayes's profiling come forward. 3 previous incidents involved black professionals who were humiliated in the Summit lobby under nearly identical circumstances to Thompson's experience. Thompson gives a brief professional statement, focusing on the financial investigation while acknowledging additional matters under review. His measured tone and impeccable credentials make him a compelling figure, the embodiment of authority wrongfully challenged based on race. Day 14. Hayes agrees to a disastrous television interview attempting to salvage his reputation by claiming he was just doing his job and would have reported anyone behaving suspiciously. When pressed for specific, suspicious behaviors, he stammers about intuition and professional experience without offering concrete examples. The interview becomes a social media firestorm. By evening, the property management company terminates his employment, issuing a formal apology and announcing mandatory anti-bias training for all security personnel. Day 17. The police union initially defends Reynolds, issuing a statement about split-second decisions and challenging security environments. This position becomes untenable when the body camera evidence and pattern of behavior become public. Department leadership, fearing federal oversight, implements immediate policy changes requiring documented reasonable suspicion before identity checks or detainment. Reynolds receives notice of suspension pending the outcome of the internal investigation. His previous commendations offer no shield against the documented pattern now emerging from his own body camera archives. Day 21. Thompson meets privately with previous victims of Hayes's discrimination, gathering additional testimonies that strengthen the civil rights case. These individuals, professionals from various fields who experienced similar profiling, express profound gratitude for Thompson's willingness to use his position to address systemic issues rather than simply identifying himself and moving on. "You could have flashed your badge and walked away," one woman tells him, voice thick with emotion. "Instead, you chose to stand with those of us who don't have badges." Thompson's expression remains professional, but his eyes reflect something deeper, the weight of responsibility that comes with his authority. Day 25. Kensington's legal team attempts to separate the financial crimes from the discrimination issue, filing motions to exclude any evidence connecting the two investigations. Thompson's team counters with communications revealing Kensington explicitly encouraged Hayes's vigilance to keep unwanted scrutiny away from the building, directly linking the discriminatory security practices to the protection of financial crimes. "The connection is explicit," Thompson explains to the federal prosecutors. Kensington created an environment where legitimate visitors were excluded based on race, effectively reducing the likelihood his financial operations would face questioning. Day 30, the FBI completes the initial phase of both investigations. The evidence is overwhelming on both fronts. Millions in documented financial fraud and a clear pattern of discriminatory enforcement targeting people of color. Thompson submits comprehensive reports to both the Financial Crimes Division and the Civil Rights Division, recommending maximum charges against all primary perpetrators. The dual investigation becomes a case study in how different forms of misconduct often reinforce each other. The financial crimes creating resources to influence protection, the discrimination providing a shield against scrutiny, each making the other possible in a self-reinforcing cycle. Throughout this cascade of consequences, Thompson maintains his professional demeanor. He seeks justice, not revenge, systematic accountability, not personal vindication. His methodical approach, documented at every stage, creates an airtight case that neither money nor influence can dismantle. In a final meeting before formal charges are filed, Director Harlan reviews the evidence Thompson has assembled. "Exemplary work," Harlan acknowledges. "Both investigations conducted by the book, despite the personal element." "It was never about me," Thompson responds. "It's about the standard we enforce." Harlan nods. The financial crimes charges are straightforward, but the civil rights case may face challenges. "We've documented 17 incidents with identical patterns," Thompson points out. "The evidence speaks for itself. Kensington and Reynolds are both seeking plea arrangements," Harlan reveals, "but they're asking for immunity from testifying about broader systemic issues." Thompson's expression hardens slightly, the first crack in his professional mask. "They want to admit to individual actions while protecting the systems that enabled them." "Exactly," Harlan confirms. "Prosecutors are considering the offers." Thompson shakes his head once decisively. "Unacceptable. The pattern is the point. Individual accountability without systemic change only guarantees more victims. Have you ever witnessed racial profiling in a professional setting? Share your experience in the comments. The prosecutor's decision will determine whether justice addresses merely symptoms or finally confronts the disease itself. The federal courtroom sits silent as Thompson takes the stand in United States versus Kensington. 3 months of investigation culminate in this moment. Kensington, in a tailored suit, now lacking its usual confidence, watches from the defense table. "Special Agent Thompson, please summarize the financial evidence against the defendant," the prosecutor requests. Thompson speaks with precise clarity, his testimony built on irrefutable documentation. "Our investigation revealed Mr. Kensington operated a sophisticated Ponzi scheme through his companies. He diverted approximately $68 million of investor funds to personal accounts and shell corporations. The fraud involved falsified returns, manipulated financial statements, and deliberate misrepresentations to investors." Kensington's attorney attempts to paint his client as a respected businessman who made administrative errors. But Thompson's methodical evidence demolishes this defense point by point. These weren't errors, Thompson explains, displaying financial transfers on the courtroom screens. The pattern demonstrates deliberate, systematic fraud sustained over 7 years. Mr. Kensington created elaborate structures specifically designed to conceal criminal activity. The judge denies Kensington bail, citing flight risk and the magnitude of charges. As federal marshals lead him away, Kensington glares at Thompson, who remains professionally detached, focused on justice rather than personal vindication. Across town, Officer Reynolds faces an internal review board. The female officer who came forward provides damning testimony about patterns of discriminatory enforcement. Other officers have followed her lead, breaking the blue wall of silence to describe similar incidents. It wasn't just that day with Agent Thompson. She testifies, "I've observed Officer Reynolds escalate encounters with minorities at least 12 times without reasonable suspicion. When I raised concerns to supervisors, they were dismissed as oversensitivity." Reynolds' defense crumbles as multiple incidents are presented. Body camera footage, civilian complaints, departmental records revealing the confrontation with Thompson wasn't isolated, but part of a documented pattern. The board recommends immediate termination and potential criminal charges for civil rights violations. At the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Hayes faces charges of discriminatory practices in building security. His attempts to justify his actions only further incriminate him as he struggles to articulate non-racial reasons for his suspicions. "Hayes, did you request identification from white visitors at the same rate as minorities?" the investigator asks. "I approached people who looked suspicious," Hayes insists. "And by what criteria did you determine suspicious?" Hayes's explanation dissolves into vague references to professional instinct and behavior patterns he cannot specifically identify. The security footage showing him consistently targeting minorities while allowing white visitors to pass unchallenged speaks more eloquently than his stammered justifications. Thompson attends each hearing, providing testimony when required, but primarily observing as the systems of accountability he activated do their work. His presence serves as a powerful reminder of how these cases began and the consequences of underestimating someone based on race. The police department enters a consent decree with federal oversight, committing to comprehensive retraining, policy reforms, and monitoring of stop patterns. Kensington's assets are frozen with proceedings begun to return funds to defrauded investors. Hayes, now unemployable in the security industry, accepts a settlement requiring anti-discrimination training and financial penalties. Throughout the proceedings, Thompson maintains his professional composure. He's not seeking personal vindication, but systematic accountability. Each hearing represents not just consequences for individuals, but examination of the systems that enabled their behavior. In the final federal hearing addressing the civil rights violations, Thompson delivers testimony that silences the courtroom. This case isn't about one incident or one individual's experience. It documents a pattern where appearance determined access, where bias masqueraded as security, and where discrimination created protection for financial crimes. Each element reinforced the others in a system designed to exclude legitimate scrutiny while facilitating illegal activity. The judge nods gravely. "And your recommendation, Agent Thompson, that the systemic nature of these violations requires systemic remedies. Individual penalties without institutional reform will only perpetuate the underlying problems." The ruling that follows adopts Thompson's recommendation, requiring not just penalties for Kensington, Hayes, and Reynolds, but mandated reforms in building security practices, police training, and financial oversight throughout the district. The investigation doesn't end with these individuals, Thompson announces outside the courthouse, cameras capturing his words for national broadcast. 6 months later, Thompson stands before 200 FBI Academy graduates. His composed presence commands attention without demanding it. the embodiment of authority earned through competence rather than conferred by position alone. The Summit financial investigation exemplifies how seemingly separate forms of misconduct often reinforce each other. Thompson explains, financial crimes created resources for influence. Discriminatory practices provided shields against scrutiny. Each made the other possible. The cadets listen intently as Thompson outlines how the dual investigation transformed into a catalyst for broader reforms. The building management company implementing the court-mandated reforms doesn't stop at minimum compliance. They establish comprehensive bias training programs now being adopted industry-wide. Security personnel undergo quarterly assessments reviewing their interaction patterns. Anonymized data tracking demographic patterns of security stops becomes standard practice with quarterly reviews triggering automatic investigations of statistical disparities. Measurable accountability creates measurable change. Thompson notes in the 6 months since implementation, discriminatory security interactions decreased by 76% across properties adopting these protocols. The police department undergoes even more profound transformation. Under the consent decree, they replace reactive discipline with proactive monitoring. Body camera footage undergoes regular algorithmic review, identifying potential bias patterns before they become entrenched behavior. The female officer who testified against Reynolds now heads a newly established professional standards unit with direct reporting authority to the commissioner. Courage in addressing internal problems prevented federal receivership. Thompson explains their reforms now serve as a model for departments nationwide. The FBI establishes a permanent civil rights compliance unit inspired by Thompson's work, specifically focused on investigating patterns rather than isolated incidents. Thompson's dual investigation approach becomes standard protocol, examining not just primary violations, but the enabling systems surrounding them. We've documented a 43% increase in successful prosecutions by addressing the protective ecosystems surrounding financial crimes, Thompson tells the graduates. Discrimination often functions as both motivation and shield for other criminal activity. Professional organizations representing building security firms develop anti-discrimination certification standards with insurance companies offering rate reductions for certified companies. The financial incentive accelerates adoption across the industry, creating market pressure for reform alongside legal requirements. Thompson receives a commendation from the Attorney General, but emphasizes that institutional change matters more than individual recognition. When offered promotion to FBI headquarters, he declines, preferring to remain in the field where he can directly mentor new agents in the investigative approaches he's pioneered. Systemic problems require systemic solutions, Thompson tells a congressional committee reviewing civil rights enforcement. When institutions measure what matters and hold themselves accountable, transformation follows naturally. Statistics tell the story of progress. Discriminatory incidents in commercial buildings decrease markedly. Civilian complaints against police drop. Financial crime detection rates improve. The intersection of these improvements confirms Thompson's core insight that addressing discrimination improves overall law enforcement effectiveness across multiple dimensions. Tag someone who needs to see what accountability looks like in 2025. As institutional reforms continue reshaping industries, Thompson receives an unexpected invitation to keynote the annual conference for building security professionals. The conference hall hums with anticipation as Thompson approaches the podium. 500 security professionals from corporate executives to frontline officers fill the room. Among them sits a familiar face, Hayes, now employed in an entry-level position with a firm specializing in reformed security practices. True security is inclusive, not exclusive, Thompson begins, his voice measured yet engaging. It protects all legitimate users while identifying actual threats based on behavior, not appearance. He doesn't mention Hayes by name or reference their encounter directly. This isn't about reopening wounds, but charting a path forward. The industry has begun transforming itself, implementing the lessons from the Summit case voluntarily rather than waiting for legal mandates. The new building manager who replaced Hayes nods along from the front row. Summit Corporate Center now operates under industry-leading protocols that emphasize objective behavioral indicators rather than subjective impressions. Their security team includes diversity in both staffing and training perspectives, creating multiple viewpoints that catch what a homogeneous team might miss. Effective security sees clearly. Thompson continues, bias creates blind spots that actually reduce safety while creating harm. The reformed police department now partners with the FBI on community initiatives addressing the intersection of security and equal treatment. Their consent decree becomes a voluntary model. Other departments adopt proactively, recognizing that fair enforcement improves both community relations and operational effectiveness. Kensington serves his sentence while cooperating with broader financial crimes investigations. His testimony helps dismantle similar operations, returning millions to defrauded investors. His case study becomes standard material in securities regulation training, illustrating how discriminatory environments often indicate additional misconduct worth investigating. After the presentation, Thompson meets privately with several officers who came forward during the investigation. Their courage in addressing internal problems has earned them not ostracism, but advancement. As departments increasingly recognize that internal accountability strengthens rather than weakens their institutions. The hardest part was speaking up that first time, one officer admits, but seeing the improvements since then confirms it was worth it. Thompson returns to regular FBI duties with enhanced authority and perspective. His methodical approach to addressing both primary violations and enabling systems becomes standard procedure across multiple federal agencies. The ripple effects extend far beyond the original case, influencing how institutions approach accountability at every level. The industry publications that once celebrated aggressive security now feature articles on precision security using targeted behavior-based approaches that protect access while preventing discrimination. Insurance companies develop risk models showing that biased security practices actually increase liability rather than reducing it, creating financial incentives that align with ethical practices. Thompson occasionally drives past the Summit building, now operating under new ownership after Kensington's assets were liquidated. The lobby where he once faced humiliation now displays a plaque commemorating the reforms that transformed industry standards. Not mentioning him by name, Thompson refused such recognition, but acknowledging the case that catalyzed change. The true measure of progress isn't in public acknowledgments, but in unremarkable daily experiences. Professionals of all backgrounds entering buildings without unnecessary challenges, security focusing on actual behavioral indicators, institutions holding themselves accountable rather than waiting for incidents to force change. Justice isn't just about punishment, Thompson tells a mentee at the FBI Academy, it's about transformation. True accountability creates change that lasts. This becomes his defining philosophy that consequences must lead to improvements, not just penalties. That systems matter as much as individuals. That accountability works best when it transforms rather than merely punishes. The most profound impact remains largely invisible. All the confrontations that never happen, the careers unimpeded by bias, the talent not lost to discriminatory barriers, progress measured not by what occurs, but by what no longer needs to be endured. If this story resonated with you, you're going to love what's coming next on Beat Stories. We're bringing you more true accounts of justice served, strategic empowerment, and systematic accountability in professional settings. Hit that subscribe button right now to never miss our weekly doses of justice being served to those who abuse their authority. These aren't just stories, they're masterclasses in strategic empowerment. Like this video to help more people discover how documentation and strategic patience can transform personal discrimination into institutional change. Your engagement helps us reach those who need these strategies most. Behind every headline is a human story. At Beat Stories, we go deeper, where emotion meets evidence and drama reveals the system. If this story made you pause, reflect, or feel something, don't forget to subscribe. There's more to come.